Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another weekly wrap-up for the Yakking Show, and this is for the week ending 11th of October, 2024, and we are still hanging on to a bit of sunshine up here in Ontario, but it's cooling off. Anyway, let's welcome Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you also very much for tuning in with us again this week. What have we got on the agenda for today, Peter?
Well, you're going to do your deep dive, and it's a really deep dive because it's a dive into aging, if I remember correctly from what we were talking about. So it's a subject much closer to my heart than yours. You've still got a long way to go
Oh,
before you need to think about getting old, and I'm already there. So let's go for it.
well, Peter, this is a very interesting study. In fact, it's suggesting that there's a slowing growth in life expectancy, which means that there are going to be fewer people living to 100. So while in the 20th century saw a rapid rise in the average life expectancy at birth, most recent years have seen a slowdown, suggesting we may have reached the limit of human lifespan. So in the 20th century, the average life expectancy at birth grew in wealthier regions by 3 years per decade.
Hmm.
So in the mid 1800s, a person could expect to live 20 to 50 years. And by the 1990s, it had reached the 50s to 70s. So extrapolating that data, people began to think that newborns born in the 21st century would regularly live beyond 100, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So there's a study that found that the average life expectancy at birth rose by 6.5 years across the study period on average. So in the US, it reached 78.8 in 2019, while in Hong Kong, it reached 85 years of age. But the rate of increase has slowed down in most countries in the periods between 2010 and 2019
Hmm.
compared with the previous 2 decades. So some experts believe that there is some sort of biological limit that keeps us from getting any older. The slowing growth over the past decade may largely be down to policies in many of the countries that they analyze, such as cuts in social benefits and healthcare services, driving up poverty. So there's another expert, Michael Rose at the University of California, Irvine, thinks that there is no limit to how long humans can live. With the right investment in anti-aging research, we could see radical life extension again in this century, at least, he says, in wealthier countries. So I'm curious, you know, my feeling is, Peter, that we as humans should be able to live way past the age of 100. And we're so inundated with toxicities from so many different sources, from your drinking water to the foods that, the preservatives and the chemicals that they put in our foods. Everything
Mm.
gives us this toxic load that possibly decreases our life expense or lifespan. Don't you agree with that?
Oh, I agree 100%. And
Mhm.
there's a one of the reasons I agree with you, something that verifies your argument, is the blue zones around the world. There are five blue zones. So one I think is in the Andes, one's in Japan, one's on the coast of Italy. Not
Mhm.
quite sure where the other two are.
Mhm.
And a high percentage of the population there lives to over 100, right? High. So what have they got in common? They're all relatively remote. They're not exposed to environmental toxicity as most people in the Western world are. They have huge social networks, very strong social networks,
Mhm.
and they exercise. A lot of them work physical work into their 90s. They
Mhm.
have healthy diets, but not as healthy as we would expect, because, for instance, the community on the coast of Italy eats a lot of processed sausage, from what I can remember. The one in the Pacific Islands, that's another one. They have a mainly fish-based diet,
Mhm.
and Japanese is fish-based diet, and one of the others is a fruit-based diet, perhaps in South America. So there's no real common thread as diet, and they're not all vegetarian. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
But they eat healthy. I think the big thing is they're not exposed to a lot of the environmental toxin. Many of them also have had far fewer vaccinations from childbirth than people in the West and in
Mhm.
more modern studies. The other point I wanted to make was that that study ends in 2019.
That's right.
And the one comment is it did that deliberately to avoid any skew from COVID. What skew from COVID? We know that the death rate from COVID was in line with the death rate from flu in a normal year, in an average year.
Mhm.
We also know there's huge numbers of excess deaths over that period caused theoretically by the vaccine, right? None of the authorities will admit it, but what else is causing it? So it'd be very interesting if they were to do that study again and go from 2010 to 2030 and see what the results there are. So anyway, that was my take on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I honestly believe that, and the poverty, even in wealthier countries now, I mean, it's evident that there are a lot of people, especially in the middle class, that are now struggling, right?
Oh yeah,
And what do people cut? They cut the foods that they normally used to eat. If they were eating organic foods, well, the prices of organic foods have skyrocketed, so they're not, they're foregoing the organic foods. I mean, it's astronomical what our food bills are nowadays, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's another thing to look at.
Hmm.
As many of our listeners and viewers will know, and as you know, I spent most of my life in Africa,
Hmm.
and I saw many African people. Africa is a very poor continent, right? Very, very poor. And I saw many African people in southern Africa who lived, subsisted on what we would say was very unhealthy diets, and mainly corn meal in various forms, few vegetables, not much meat.
Hmm.
But many of them lived into the 80s and 90s, right? And why? Because they weren't exposed to as many toxins as we are here in first world. They worked physically hard all their lives, right? Kids walked 3, 4 miles to school every day, and the kids had chores when they got home. They lived close to nature.
Hmm.
They didn't have mobile phones and computers to. So I think it's a combination in the West of poor diet, lack of exercise, um, social isolation, especially with the lockdowns, and now people relying on phones, screens to communicate. But I think another big thing is, and again, especially since the lockdown, a lot of people haven't gone back to work or have chosen other forms of work they can do from home.
Right.
So I think, and it's not just me saying this, I've been reading a lot of from much more uh, better educated people than myself saying that this social isolation is a huge problem and it removes the purpose of life for many people.
Hmm.
I think that not having sufficient purpose is a big factor in this as well.
Absolutely, Peter. I would agree with that 100%. So, what is the theme here today that we're talking about? Is if we have this toxic load, then wouldn't it stand to reason that we should all go through our body cleanses on a regular basis?
Yeah,
Which brings me to the detox kits that Dr. Morse um, sells on his website, which absolutely fabulous. I absolutely adore this man. He has been on our show, and wow, what an interview that was. Don't you remember that one,
that
Peter?
was
That
very
was
good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And anyways, these detox kits, he's made it as simple as possible. So what he's included is a formula for the bowel movement support, lymphatic support, um, kidney support, urinary system and elimination support, endocrine system support, and stress support. So all of these products are included in this kit. So, I mean, it couldn't be simpler is if you got one of these kits and went through a proper diet for a month and just went through a cleanse, you would be just doing yourself such great benefits. It really
Mm.
is. And I always take, I'm doing his drops right now. This is a lymphatic drop, but I'm also doing drops for the endocrine system, drops for the kidney system, and so on, as well as GI. Fabulous products. We're going to put a link to his products in this video. And if you put in a Yakking Show on their website, when you go through the checkout, you will get a discount. So
That's right.
bonus.
Just for my own edification and for our viewers and listeners, the instructions in the kit, Kathleen, does it tell you in what order to take those drops?
Yes, the kit will tell you exactly how to take them. In most cases, you can take them all together
Hmm.
away from food, and some they might instruct you to do it with food, but the
Okay.
instructions are are all there. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Excellent. So that's our health recommendation for the week, and the debate. If you want to contribute to the debate on aging, feel free to drop a comment on our website
Mhm.
or on YouTube, or on Podbean, or on Spotify, wherever you're watching or listening to this too. So let's get on with what happened on the Yakking Show this week. So our guest in the Tuesday episode was Alan Meisner, and Alan's speciality is 40 plus fitness. So he tells you and shows you with his exercises how to keep, and his recommendations, how to keep fit past 40. And he will tell you also that if you don't keep fit up to 40, and beyond 40, you have a problem trying to get fit after that, because it's very difficult to rebuild lost muscle mass or past the age of 50. And that's why he suggests you really need to get in shape in your late 30s and early 40s and keep in shape. And I've found my muscle mass is still reasonably good. And I found that from a lifetime of active sports, active work, and I still work quite hard physically and lift
Mhm.
logs and walk 5 mornings a week,
And
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 after seeing the benefits.
and Peter, we also talked about how genetically we tend to go through aging spurts. One
Yep,
happens to be in the 40s, and the next aging spurt is what, in the 60s?
yep, yep.
That's
60s.
interesting. Yeah,
It's very interesting. And the way to prevent that age, or to delay the aging spurt in the 60s, is to keep physically active and do some weight bearing exercises. And that
absolutely.
maintains your muscle, right? If you
Mhm.
don't use muscle after 50, it decays very quickly, or not decays, atrophies very quickly. So that's a very interesting episode, and an important one. We've just been talking about aging and how sedentary lifestyle is a major contributor to the slowing down of people living to 100. Have a look at the episode. So who's coming up next week? Well, next week we've got Lauren Callahan, who specializes in gut health. She's also an ultra marathon runner and a triathlete, Ironman triathlete. She's done some really serious endurance sports. Got a good life story too, but she specializes in gut health. And she says, until you get your gut health right, you're never going to achieve optimum wellness or fitness. So that's coming up next week. The week after that will be Sarah Dawkins, similar sort of subject, and her theme is heal yourself. And she talks from personal experience, and she helps people get in the right mindset and adopt the right habits, and that includes diet, exercise, to heal a lot of the chronic ailments that our modern societies are suffering from.
Mhm.
And then the week after that will be, I hope I get this name right, Meelis Kavistik from Estonia, who will be talking about natural cosmetics and the benefit of using natural cosmetics as opposed to ones that are full of chemicals and stuff. So that's our guests, our lineup that's coming up. And then, of course, we always, sorry, Kathleen, I'm rattling on. What about you? Have you got any comments on any of those guests? Any more comments?
No, no, actually, keep going, Peter. Keep going. I was just going to mention about Maylise Kvistic and her face yoga, and she's going to be
That's right.
demonstrating that for us as well.
That's
So
right.
stay
That's right.
tuned.
Yeah, well, it won't do much good. I think I'm beyond redemption. But anyway, uh, I meant in my looks, not in my character. Sorry. So anyway, who's our guest featured author? We're going to go back to Douglas Mulhall, who will be coming on again in the not too distant future. He's been on twice, once on longevity and once on epigenetics. And this is a shout out for him because his book, The Nature of Longevity, has just reached bestseller status on Amazon in its category. It's a really good book. And we were talking about aging earlier on. If you want to live longer, you need to buy Douglas's book and read it. And it gives you a whole lot of tips. He talks about blue zones in there as well. So that's our book. And the last bit from me is I've been talking about the interesting guests we have coming along. If you don't want to miss them, hop onto our website, yakkingshow.com, sign up for our newsletter. We just send you one email a week. And if you sign up now, we've got a bonus for you. We have a special with 8 health secrets, little snippets from some of our guests with their secrets for maintaining a healthy and balanced life. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Back to you, Kathleen.
Well, thank you all so very much for tuning in. Until next week, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.